Name of God Summary Season 1. Beings about gods and demons. The man who seek God and the man who seek the devil. In the end, a tangled story of people who found God and found the devil. Three main characters. Shin Hansu, God's Onishat. Mid-20s, an icon of bad luck. A man who has no friends and always lives depressed. I like the popular girl Sumi. And I obsessed with the agony of life and questions about God. He endlessly searches for God. And eventually meets him. Jo Pilsung, certainly achieve, early 30s. I am a man who lost everything in my life, felt doubtful about life and tried to commit suicide, but met Lucifer, the king of devils. I made a contract with him and started a new life. The devil transformed me with amazing abilities. Single quote. Chai Sumi, pure beauty, mid-20s. I am a church-going girl that Hansu likes. I endure all sorts of hardships unfairly and overcome crises together with Hansu. She is a representative character who believes in God well and suffers in this world. Hansu explores all the religions, absurdities, and philosophies of this world, and Pilsung lives a new life through a contract with the devil. Two different people end up facing an unexpected situation in a whirlwind of fate. Hansu visits churches and temples to resolve his unresolved questions after meeting God, and upon seeing Sumi being sexually assaulted by the pastor of the church, he vows revenge on the pastor. Pilsung gains a lot of money, power, and pleasure through the power of the devil, becomes a novelist, and becomes very successful. Hansu succeeds in taking revenge on the false pastor by overcoming the risk of death, and goes there with Archangel Michael to save Sumi, who is in danger after being dragged into a cult once again. Pilsung finds himself becoming increasingly evil as he is tempted by the devil, and becomes stronger as he gains fame and power. Pilsung becomes the devil's henchman and eventually becomes the leader of a cult that unifies all religions, and Hansu, who believes in God, confronts him and ends up being burned at the stake. However, with God's help, Hansu is released. And the story ends with a war between God and the devil at the end of the world. Brief summary of God's Game episodes 1 to 7. Episode 1. Hansu is sick of the pretentious and hypocritical church people. Tormented by his unfortunate life, he searches for his God. One day, God appears to Hansu and reveals the secret of his beginnings. Pilsung loses everything and decides to commit suicide, but fails and meets the devil Lucifer. Lucifer makes a contract with Pilsung and promises to give him 7 temptations. Hansu's friend Sumi attends church diligently. However, she is sexually assaulted by the church's false pastor. Episode 2. Hansu learns of Sumi's sexual assault case and blames God. He can't do anything and he hates himself more. Hansu doesn't know what to do, so he visits a temple near his house. He listens to monks say on wall, holy life, talk about Buddhism and begins to think about the existence of God. And while walking down the street, Hansu and Pilsung run into each other by chance. Foreshadowing in the future. Pilsung meets Mammon, the demon of money, and becomes suddenly rich. As Hansu reads the Bible, his resentment toward God grows stronger. Then he falls asleep and he meets Christ. Sumi chooses to commit suicide due to the injustice and shame she suffered. Episode 3. Hansu runs to the Han River to rescue Sumi and succeeds in rescuing her. A few days later, when they hear that Sumi is pregnant, they are shocked and the two perform an abortion at an obstetrics and gynecology clinic. And Hansu vows revenge on the false pastor. Turning point. Although Pilsung has a lot of money, he is lonely and bored. The second demon, Asmodeus, takes Pilsung and teaches him violence. Pilsung meets his high school friend who bullied him in Hongdae University Street. He chases the guy in the car. And he succeeds in brutally taking revenge. Hansu went to the church Sumi attended and tried to report the false pastor to the police. But Sumi appears and is trying to kill the false pastor with her dagger. Episode 4. Hansu restrains Sumi and thereby hurts Sumi. Archangel Michael, who was watching from heaven, felt sorry for Hansu. He asks God to come down to earth and help Hansu. Pilsung is lonely. This time, 4 demons appear and satisfy Pilsung's physical lust. The demons use their respective abilities to help Pilsung fall in love with all the beautiful women at the bar, in the room, at nightclub, and on the street, including foreigners. With Michael's help, Hansu arrives at the false pastor's secret villa and discovers evidence of his crime. However, Hansu dies after being shot by a pastor who noticed him. Episode 5. Hansu goes to heaven, meets God, and God brings him back to life. Pilsung is boring again. Now I want to become famous. This time, two devils appear and turn him into a novelist. His book, Tower of Babel, becomes a bestseller. Hansu discovers evidence of the false pastor and the false pastor meets a miserable end. Hansu leaves for Jungdongjin with Sumi and they fall in love. But when Sumi's parents return to her home, she accuses Sumi of being possessed by a demon for the death of her false pastor. And they drag Sumi to the cult Sungbang Spiritual Training Center. There was a second villain, Ku Evangelist. Episode 6. Hansu falls into despair again after losing Sumi. But by his side is Archangel Michael. Michael takes Hansu to the cult, and Hansu and Sumi make a desperate escape from there. Pilsung becomes famous and receives great honor due to the success of his novel. Lucifer now calls on Pilsung to realize his cause. And he makes Pilsung become the leader of Babelism, which unifies all religions. Pilsung and 5 demons take control of the Catholic, Buddhist, Christian, Muslim, and Freemason branches. Hansu and Sumi stay in a safe haven with Michael's help. And he gets to work at the meat restaurant of philosopher Boss Han. The villain, Ku, preacher of the cult, Sungbang Spiritual Training Center, becomes Pilsung's subordinate and puts Hansu and Sumi, who ran away from his cult, on the wanted list. Episode 7. Angels and demons are fighting fiercely on the first level of heaven. On the ground, Hansu coincidentally meets his friend Judas, Pilsung's subordinate. Hansu, Judas, 2 atheist friends, and the philosopher Boss Han have a fierce debate at Boss Han's restaurant about whether there is a god or not. And through Judas's introduction, Hansu meets Pilsung. However, the two, knowing that their gods are different, they feel cannot mix. And Pilsung gathers people of all religions in the square in front of City Hall to announce the second coming of Lucifer and is stabbed to death by a zealous Christian believer. However, with the help of Belial, the absolute monarch of hell, Pilsung is revived. A fireball falls from the sky and burns down the spire in front of City Hall. He then begins to capture and persecute all Christians and erects a talking statue of Lucifer in Gwangwaman. Hansu and Sumi run away from Pilsung's persecution and are eventually caught. After being brutally tortured, he is hung on the roof of Gwangwaman and is in danger of being burned at the stake. Pilsung holds a torch and persuades Hansu to abandon God. Hansu and Sumi believe in God and resist Pilsung until the end. Pilsung sets Sumi on fire and she goes to heaven. The moment Pilsung is about to kill Hansu, lightning falls from the sky, knocking Pilsung down, and Archangel Michael takes Hansu away. Pilsung, who is survived by the demons, becomes even more vicious with his demons and persecutes all Christians. Archangel Michael explains to Hansu about the 2 prophets of the last days and the 2 witnesses in the book of Revelation in the Bible. The 2 witnesses will arrive soon. You have been given the task of helping them fight the Babel religion, so follow me. Quote. This concludes Season 1.